But I don't believe for one moment that seeking these warrants is going to help get the hostages out, it's not going to help get aid in, and it's not going to help deliver a sustainable ceasefire. We've said from the outset, because Israel is not a signatory to the Rome Statute, and because Palestine is not yet recognised as a state, we don't think that the court has jurisdiction in this. ICC was about to embark on a visit to Israel, which some of us had helped to arrange, and at the last minute decided to cancel that visit and simply go ahead with its announcement. Now, it's not normally for the ICC to think about the effect, but as it clearly thought about the timing, maybe it should also think about the effect, and as I've said, it's not going to help get the hostages out, and it probably makes change in Israel less likely.
We now come to questions to the Secretary of State for Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Affairs. First question, Baroness Bennett of Manor Castle.
My Lords, I beg leave to ask the question standing under my name on the order paper.
We respect the ICJ's role and independence. It's up to the court to monitor Israel's compliance. We've noted our concerns previously about this case, which we don't think is helpful in the goal of achieving a sustainable ceasefire. While there has been some progress in some areas of humanitarian relief, Israel must do more to make good its promises, and I'm pressing them on this directly. I regularly review advice about the situation in Gaza. Our position on export licences remains unchanged, but we of course keep this under review.
I thank the noble Lord for his answer, but of course events have moved on since my question was laid. The ICC prosecutor has made applications for 5 arrest warrants alleging war crimes and crimes against humanity against senior Hamas leaders and the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and the Minister of Defence. The prosecutor was advised to do so unanimously by the independent panel of experts, our own Baroness Kennedy of the Shores among them, which has set out why it believes there are reasonable grounds to believe Mr Netanyahu and Mr Gallant have committed war crimes and crimes against humanity. Surely it is now obvious that the UK should immediately at least suspend arms exports licences to Israel, given the clear risk that continuing them would put the UK in breach of international law. And surely the noble Lord the Minister will confirm here that the UK accepts the jurisdiction of the court in this case under the Rome Statute that the UK helped to write and of course agreed to.
Well, what I'd say to the noble lady is the last time I was asked to make a sort of political declaration outside our normal process of reviewing arms export licences and simply say we wouldn't sell any more arms to Israel. Just a few days later, Iran attacked Israel with a hail of over 140 cruise missiles, and I think that position of acting outside our normal processes would have been completely wrong. But let me answer very directly on the ICC and the announcement yesterday. I mean, I don't believe for one moment that seeking these warrants is going to help get the hostages out, it's not going to help get aid in, and it's not going to help deliver a sustainable ceasefire. And as we've said from the outset, because Israel is not a signatory to the Rome Statute and because Palestine is not yet recognised as a state, we don't think that the court has jurisdiction in this area. But I would go beyond that and say, frankly, I think this is mistaken in terms of position, in terms of timing, in terms of effect. To draw moral equivalence between the Hamas leadership and the democratically elected leader of Israel, I think is just plain wrong. And I think it's not just Britain saying that. Countries all over Europe and all over the world are saying that. On timing, I'd make the point to the Lordship's House that the ICC was about to embark on a visit to Israel, which some of us had helped to arrange, and at the last minute decided to cancel that visit and simply go ahead with its announcement. Now, it's not normally for the ICC to think about the effect, but as it clearly thought about the timing, maybe it should also think about the effect, and as I've said, it's not going to help get the hostages out, and it probably makes change in Israel less likely.
Can I also say, would he agree that if we and the West were to suspend arms sales, it would allow Hamas the opportunity to regroup and return to the destructive and ghastly behaviour they witnessed on October the 7th?
Thank my noble friend for that question. I mean, obviously Britain and America are in completely different situations in terms of arms exports to Israel. Our exports are less than 1% of the total, so not a meaningful amount, whereas obviously the United States is a far bigger provider. But as I say, I think acting outside our proper processes, where we have a process going through Israel's commitment, Israel's capability and Israel's compliance with the rules laid out in our export criteria. Acting outside those guidelines, I don't think would be the right thing to do for the reasons I've given.
The Secretary recall in 2014, in the conflict between Israel and Hamas, that he agreed with us on these benches that in that conflict, where there were just over 2,000 Palestinian casualties, then the Prime Minister decided to pause military equipment licenses to Israel on the basis of a position of disproportionate response by the Israeli military. That was the normal procedure which he's referred to. So do we take it now that his view is that the Israeli military response currently is proportionate? And when it comes to the ICC, will the Foreign Secretary reassure me that notwithstanding any of his opinions about the ICC, we will honour every obligation the United Kingdom has signed up to in the Rome Statute? These are treaty obligations for when it comes to those who would be arraigned by the ICC.
What I say to the Noble Lord, there's a bit of a difference between 2014 and now, and that is today. I'll tell you why. Today is day 227 when the hostages are still in captivity, including British citizens. And all of this relates to what happened on October the 7th. There was no October the 7th in 2014, so we are in a different situation. Of course, we respect the independence of the ICC, but just as we respect its independence, they should respect the independence of politicians, not to suddenly lose their voice and lose all their opinions about these things. I have a very clear view about what's happened, and I've been happy to share it with your Lordship's House.
The fact that the Noble Lord is supporting the independence of the ICC, absolutely vital. But I hope the Noble Lord can really truly find his voice, because when the UK supported UN Security Council Resolution 2417, which said that condemned unlawful denial of humanitarian access and an act of willfully impeding relief supply should be condemned, the Noble Lord on BBC said, Lord Cameron said, that Israel had not had a clean bill of health on allowing humanitarian aid to enter in Gaza. Does he accept Israel is in breach of that resolution? And if he does not he think that is a breach of international humanitarian law?
The Noble Lord is absolutely right. I did say, and I repeat again, we've far from given Israel a clean bill of health on this issue. Not enough has been done to get aid in. We've had some recent promises which are encouraging, about 500 trucks a day, about the opening of Ashdod port, about the new pier adjacent to the beach in Gaza. And some of those promises are being fulfilled. Ashdod is open, the pier is working, and aid is being delivered, including British aid. But some of the promises are not being kept, and no one, I think, has been tougher on the Israelis than me in direct call after call and message after message about having to meet their obligations. So we haven't given them a clean bill of health, but that is a world of difference between that and actually issuing arrest warrants at the same time as you are for Hamas, and drawing this moral equivalence. And it's not just the UK that takes this view. The United States has said that simultaneous applications for arrest warrants gives the false impression of equation. Sorry, that was the Germans. The Americans have called it outrageous. The Italians have called it totally unacceptable. The Austrians have said the fact that the leader of a terrorist organisation, Hamas, whose declared goal is the extinction of the State of Israel, is being mentioned at the same time as the democratically elected representatives of that very state, is non-comprehensible. The Czechs have said that it's appalling and completely unacceptable. I'd say, actually, I don't want to get too political in their Lordship's House, but the odd man out in many ways is the party opposite that seems to be saying that it supports the ICC in every way. I have answered your question.
Does my noble friend, the Foreign Secretary, share my concern that the continuing free prospects
whilst fully supporting Israel's right to defend itself and fully supporting its desire to degrade Hamas's military capacity, would the Foreign Minister not agree there is a legitimate worry about the use from the very beginning of the campaign of these 2,000-pound bombs, which in a very densely populated area are so difficult to use in a way which is both discriminate and proportionate?
Absolutely agree that while Israel has the right to defend itself and Israel has the right to try and deal with Hamas and to prevent October the 7th happening again, it is important, and we've said this throughout, that Israel complies with international humanitarian law as they do so.
Can my noble friend, the Foreign Secretary, does he share my concern that the continuing freezing of the now $430 million under the Israel-Norway Accord, this is largely from Palestinian tax revenues, that this actually, the withdrawal or the withholding of this money fatally undermines the authority of the Palestinian National Authority, and what more can he do to ensure that that money does get to them and quickly?
I think my noble friend is absolutely right. One of the most important things we can do in terms of trying to bring this conflict to a conclusion is work on the political measures that are going to be necessary to deal with these problems. One of them is to strengthen the Palestinian Authority. And the Palestinian Authority needs the money that Israel is holding back from it, and we've pressed the Israelis about that again and again. And I would still say to the Israelis that, you can't fight something with nothing. You may not think the Palestinian Authority is ideal. You may think that it fails in many respects. But you need to find a partner that is not Hamas that you can work with in Gaza on the West Bank. And that partner should be the new technocratic government run by the Palestinian Authority.